He has a duty to say whether or not he saw the ad that he says blew up the so-called deal he had. So will he do the honest thing and answer the question, did he see the ad, or is it actually his incompetence?
One thing we know about the conservatives is that they don't know shame.
That minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that is built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
People in Canada know that this government has their back. It's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Now, Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
He has a duty to say whether or not he's...
Welcome to the nap, the no answer period, where we cover the question period prefaced by a review of the far left evil that is besetting our land and the events that surround it. The nap is a daily show whenever the House sits daily, or until they decide to stop showing up for work. We're streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube, also called CommieTube around these parts. So please, like, thumbs up, follow, share, subscribe, and leave a comment, because let's drive the algorithm when I'm not driving the algorithm down with my words. Sorry for a bit of the late start this morning. OBS crashed just before I started. Might have been taxing my computer a little too much. I did publish a standalone video just before the start of this, and we will play this at the end of question period as we close out the show. Let's get on to our first panel of the stuff we are covering. As a reminder, everyone, as you know, we are in a government-controlled environment here in Canada, and that includes where you get your news from, which means that every time you see a journalist on TV, in media, mainstream media, newspaper, or whatever, they are them right here. Qualified journalism, qualified Canadian journalism organization. These are the elitists who think that they have a right to tell you how to think. I always like to bring this up. These guys should be wearing armbands. After all, we are funding them, so it's nice to know who they are. Let's get on to our first topic that we cover every time here, and that is the Universal Ostrich Farm. I see that today they did not have a live feed, and with the call order in place, oh, there is a live feed now. No, that's a prior feed. There's no feed at all. So it might be the end for the birds. And as for Craden, let's do a quick refresh on his page. He's been our go-to source for a lot of the information. And I don't think there was anything new. Yes, that's right. Just yesterday, tidying up the story on their disposal of the birds. Just a reminder that with these laws in place, uh, it's becoming more apparent that Canadians do not have property rights. That the government can just come in like a bunch of communists and decide to destroy your property, take it away, and you have no recourse whatsoever. I don't see how this is a viable solution moving forward for our citizens in this nation, given this kind of overreach by the government. If the next government doesn't do anything about this, there will be consequences, either with people fleeing the nation or the people who can't flee, making the people making these decisions flee. That's usually what happens in nations that start breaking down and abusing their citizens, while the people making the decisions don't seem to have to suffer from the consequences of their decisions. Well, our digital ID sign up against it in the UK still hasn't topped 3 million, and it seems to be almost coming down to a standstill. As a matter of fact, yeah, still hasn't reached 3 million. Be nice if it does. Okay, let's move on to the next panel. Oh, I see we still have our bug up from yesterday. Let's get rid of that panel. Nope, not that panel. This panel. Much better. There we go. Come on. There we go. All right. So, as you know, Doug Ford went and screwed everything up for Canada by deciding to do a little vanity project. So, let's do a quick recap. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, the ones who should know exactly what Ronald Reagan said and thinks, since that is the foundation. There's been a lot of talk from all the talking heads in Canada, especially those of the QCJO variety. Yeah, these guys, especially those guys, they think they know better than the actual foundation, which they said learned that the government of Ontario, Canada created an ad campaign using selective audio and video, President Ronald Reagan delivering his radio address to the nation on free and fair trade. Dated April 25, 1987. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address, and the government of Ontario did not seek nor receive permission to use and edit the remarks. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options in this matter. We encourage you to watch President Reagan's unedited video on your YouTube channel. Well, there you go. The very foundation who's responsible for the memory of Ronald Reagan is telling Ontario, you guys manipulated his message, and we're considering suing you. Congratulations, Dougie. Not only did you blow 75 million for an ad, that money probably could have been better spent helping the 2.2 million at food banks. There's a good chunk of them right here in Ontario. Than wasting your money on this, but it doesn't end there. So apparently, and I mentioned this yesterday, Table Salt said that the Communist Chinese Party put out a video almost identical to the one that Doug Ford put out. So, is it plagiarism? $75 million plagiarism? No, but it gets better. It gets better. So, let's see what David says here on Moose and a Loose, because he sums this up rather nice.
Stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
Is this a coordinated effort by China to work with the Ford government, the Carney government, to put this out? Did they just rip this off? Were they lazy and just stole the ad idea? What is this? We don't know what's going on here, but this is ridiculously close. Jeff Evely posting this, nothing to see here. The Toronto PC MPP involved in Chinese interference saga. That's interesting. A lot like what Carney has going on. Carney lashes out at reporters denying meeting with CCP-backed group despite photos. Nothing.
If I could call any video I've ever made a Mona Lisa, this one might be the Mona Lisa.
Okay, before we play Mario, I just noticed my mic was off. So it gets a little more interesting.
I could call any video I've ever made a Mona Lisa, this one might be the Mona Lisa of my investigations. Extremely controversial Ronald Reagan ad campaign that resulted in all trade negotiations being halted because it was approved by Doug Ford and viewed by Mark Carney, was produced by a firm with ties to Doug Ford's PC party. The company is called Creative Currency. In 2022, they received $168,000 creating the Get It Done slogan. In 2025, they played a much larger role and they received $1.7 million from the Ontario PC government. Neither the Premier's office nor Creative Currency responded to Global News questions on how much the commercial actually cost, despite the $75 million budget to advertise it. This is where it gets good. This is Corey Tanaik. He's been in charge of Doug Ford's campaigns. He also owns and runs a company called Rubicon Strategy, a leading public affairs and government relations firm. Rubicon was registered to lobby for 16 organizations that received SDF grants. This lobbying firm, Rubicon Strategy, owned by the Premier's campaign manager, got more than $100 million in grant money. An article in the Toronto Star was published that said that Corey's blunt style has ruffled the feathers of some cabinet ministers who have privately complained to the Star that he has too much power. Now this is where it gets interesting. Corey married Nicole Alouette. Sorry if I butchered that name. Nicole has a sister named Ali Alouette Matthews. Remember that last name, Matthews. She recently tweeted, "Thank you to @FindCurrency for hosting the live taping of our podcast tonight." You click on that, you get Creative Currency, the same company that created the Ronald Reagan ad campaign. You scroll down, it says, "Our President Dennis Matthews." This is Dennis Matthews. Let me spell it out. Corey Tanaik, who owns Rubicon Strategy, who is also Doug Ford's campaign manager, he's the brother-in-law of Dennis Matthews, who owns that agency that produced the ad. Not only that, if you Google search Allison Matthews, you'll see that she's been named as a member of the board of the LCBO.
Wow. Can you believe that? But it doesn't end there. That's right. There's always more, I want to say fuckery. I just said it. Remember, none of this can be happening without your money, Canadians and Ontarians. That's right. It's blowing your bloody money for their vanity projects. They don't care. You know, if you just had a little more control over the purse strings over them, but no, they don't have any accountability. They just spend that same ideological riffraff. So, let's listen to Viva Frey on this very topic here, and which really gets down to the nub of what the hell is going on and why we're in this pickle.
Quote, radio address to the nation on free and fair trade.
This all started with a political ad that Doug Ford, he's the premier of the province of Ontario, paid $75 million for, ran on American television stations for some reason as though that could not arguably be deemed to be interfering with American politics, squandered dollars to run a political ad in America, and now he had to do something of a tour of shame because after that ad aired, Donald Trump severed all negotiations with Canada as relates to the tariff war. Now the only problem with that ad is that it took statements made by President Ronald Reagan totally out of context. I should say not totally out of context, just essentially out of context, where they aired these statements that Ronald Reagan made, ostensibly condemning tariffs and promoting total open borders, except they cut out the 55 seconds of that very video in which he begged to retain the right to impose tariffs, selective as he might think they are. He begged for the right to retain tariffs as a negotiating tool. They just clipped that part out of the video because, you know, they have to lie when telling the truth.
Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are those in the Congress, just as there were back in the 30s, who want to go for the quick political advantage, who risk America's prosperity for the sake of a short-term appeal to some special interest group, who forget that more than 5 million American jobs are directly tied to the foreign export business and additional millions are tied to imports. Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well.
You're finally here. Maybe not by accident. Sometimes we find something exactly
And then, of course, Viva goes on to remind everyone that the reasons we're in this trade pickle is because Canada still hasn't done what Trump asked us to do back in February, which was to secure the border against all the terrorists going across the border and do something about the fentanyl drug trade. And that's all tied together with the criminal cartels operating in our country, along with their drug trafficking and human trafficking. And we've done nothing about it. Oh, we made a lot of promises. Oh, we'll get an extra 1,000 RCMP officers. We'll get an extra 1,000 CBSA officers. But we're not getting them. We're not getting them until next year. And I don't understand how, when you say we're going to get an extra 1,000 RCMP officers, it's like the bloody military. They have their own recruiting system. They have their own school that they process the recruits through. And if they're not getting recruits, just like the military's not, then how are they going to produce 1,000 extra officers? I mean, we know what's happening in the Canadian Armed Forces, right? They're going out of their way not to hire white Christians, and they have to meet their diversity quota. And that's why they can't hire anybody, because there's people lining up for jobs, especially in the military, even though, that's, you're still going to require 3 COVID-19 jobs, even after all the harm it's done. Oh, you still got to take it if you go out on deployment, but no problem. You go ahead and join. We'll figure out how screwed up you are after, right? Because they don't vet them anymore when they put them through the recruiting system. Wonder if that's the same thing that's happening right now with the RCMP, is if they don't do any aptitude tests. Like they don't do any aptitude tests anymore for the Canadian military. They'll just kind of like, hopefully the instructors will be able to get you through to the part where you can safely operate a weapon and not shoot your buddy in the back while you're doing, section tactics, which I doubt, because they're needing translators in Gagetown with recruits. It's ridiculous. But anyway, 1,000 CBSA officers to deal with the drug issues at the border and our lax border. Well, apparently only 800 of them are actually going to be officers. The other 200 being like supporting staff. And they still had to set up, I don't know, another school somewhere. They couldn't use one of the existing facilities. Well, I think they did. They repurposed an older facility, but still, out of the blue. And they've done nothing. Nothing since February. Oh, we got to get ready for, like they had departments. The government still operates without the party, but the party controls everything. And there was no will whatsoever, because they need to ensure that there's a continued crisis at the border to piss off the Americans so they can play the game of Orange Man Bad in order to continue to manipulate people and their emotions. And it's working out for them, right? Because the majority of the Canadians so far, if you believe some of the polls, still believe the elbows up BS. But, so, I wanted to play a little bit of this because just to point out how much of a hypocrite it is.
Doug Ford, thank you so much for joining us, sir. So you said this morning that this was, quote, the most successful ad in the history of North America. Is the additional 10% tariff on Canadians also part of that success?
Well, first of all, Jake, thanks for having me on. I start off every interviewing saying that Canadians love Americans. I love America. I love Americans. I lived there for 20 years. And that my intention was to bring this to the American people and tell them that tariffs, protectionism does not work. Ronald Reagan was a free trader, the greatest president, in my opinion, ever. And we wanted to get the message out. And did the message get out? 100%. It had 11.4 billion with a B impressions, we talk in the media, but views around the world. And again, we just want to make sure that we work side by side with our closest friends and allies. A tariff on Canada is a tax on Americans. President Trump ran on creating more jobs. We've seen 5 consecutive months, manufacturing jobs are down. We've seen inflation go up. That's not what President Trump ran on. And we want to be the solution. And the way we get back on track is sign a deal with your largest #1 customer in the world, and that's Canada.
CNN's news gathering partner, CBC, reports that your anti-Trump rhetoric, your criticism of Trump, came up repeatedly during trade negotiations. Was that intentional at all, being the bad cop?
Well, I've never said anything personal about President Trump. In our ad, it was very ironic. that President Trump saw it and he said, yeah, that was a good ad. If I was Canada, I'd run the same ad. And then all of a sudden he wakes up in the morning, someone whispers something in his ear, and now he's not happy.
Did you hear that? I never said anything bad about Trump. And then he goes on to tell a little made up story about him as if Trump can't think for himself and he needs somebody to plant an idea in his head and move on from there as if he can't make his own decisions. This guy, I'm telling you, has got some substance abuse issues. Nobody is that ridiculously unfit for office as this clown. Doing his performances out in public? Oh, come on. Dumping out a bottle of Crown Royal like that? And then doing this stuff? This guy is a manipulated puppet. Somebody else is pulling the strings, and obviously they're pocketing the money, like his buddy Corey Tedike. Yeah, Corey Tedike's got quite the history and the backgrounds of working with the progressive conservatives. Yeah, they brought him in a bit on the conservatives, but they let him go. Yeah, he was really good with the progressives. And he was in the background in Sun News Network. And, you know, that failed. Yes, the CRTC did everything they could not to allow Sun News to continue. But what did Corey Tonight do, knowing the changes in media that was coming? He's a corporate guy. He's right in there with the rest, and he knows which levers to push and who's got their fingers on the other people's money that he can tap into, obviously. Yeah, all those insiders getting rich off your pockets while you line up at the food bank. All right. Well, speaking of food banks and how we compare to the rest of the planet here, with 10 years of Liberal Party destruction of our economy, let's see how we fit here. Where's Canada's total merchandise exports, top 15 trade partners in the U.S. states? So there we go. Look at this. The largest trading, and it breaks it down here by all these states. And where do we go? Oh, Mexico. So we trade more with Oklahoma than we do with Mexico, or Germany, or South Korea. South Korea, yeah, for the PMs recently, right? Tapping into existing trade, making announcements about we will get more future trade. But seriously, they're over the seas. Who's going to put it on a boat and sell it to us or us sell it to them? That adds to the cost if they can't buy it locally. And really, what do we produce that they really want other than all the stuff that the liberals have kept us from exploiting in our natural resources? Yep. Well, let's look at some more stats. Oh, population in Canada in real-time model. One non-permanent resident every 3 minutes and 54 seconds. Yeah, that's how fast the Liberals are inundating Canada with immigrants, expediting the destruction of our culture and our society because they're not allowing them time to absorb and become part of our culture. You're allowing them to come in, ghettoize themselves, not become part of Canadian culture, and and then you're allowing them to continue their lives in their own language and not learning our two official languages. And we know this because you have 53 different languages to do a driving test in Ontario. What kind of stupid, ridiculous fuckery is that? So you get somebody who passes a driving test in one of those other 51 languages that are not official in Canada, and then they're supposed to be able to read our road signs? You know? They're bilingual. And even in Quebec, the standard road signs are bilingual. I mean, their language signs aren't, like if you're going to this place or that place, or because everything's in French there. But they're standard road signs, stop ahead. Yeah, I guess you could recognize the stop sign symbol, the paradigm that hits your mind and goes, you see that sign, and automatically you want to stop. Even if it said go on it, you would stop because you're so fixated and you understand that red octagon makes you stop. But regardless, why are we allowing people to come in and do driver's tests in a language that maybe that's why we had all these trucking accidents as part of it, aside from the trucking schools that were pointing out drivers, just to make the money. Let's see, average annual immigration in Canada was 617,800 from 2000 to 2015. Then the Liberals came in and they did this. Wow. Why would you do that to your country? There's only one reason to do this to your country, and that's a power move. Why would an incoming party who professes to be Canadian all the way, goes and embarks on a campaign of population replacement? And of course, we would say this ahead of time. We were all being called racists. But the proof is in the pudding. Again, blood pudding. I mean, Canadians too poor to have kids themselves, and then you brought in a bunch of people to replace them who come from poor nations, and they don't care if they have kids when they're poor. And turns out that they're even richer than Canadians because you're giving them a bunch of free money for the first 2 years that they're here. That's right. And then after 2 years, when the money runs out, I'm sure they'll find another venue of money. And if they don't, well, they just go back home. And meanwhile, they've probably gotten their Canadian citizenship and you're giving them a bunch of money. All right. Conservative leader claimed that the National School Funding Program is just bureaucracy, and a member of his party called it garbage. Yes, it is bloody garbage because these people are talking about, oh, we're feeding people. We've talked about it. We've talked to people on the ground. They're saying we want this, we want that. I was just talking to somebody in my writing the other day, and they were so lucky that we were able to hire 2 more people at the lunch, and now the lunch lady has a full-time job. And yes, Canadians are all paying for this. And they don't, but if you go down and you look at the comments, they're not fooling anybody. People can see this communism for what it is, no matter how often they do the messaging. Now, first off was Dr. Hattie Fry. She got so embarrassed by a post that she put up that she deleted it. And here's the post. She said, CPC just defended their voting against the National Food School Program by saying that parents would prefer to feed their kids themselves rather than have the government feed them. The logic here? And then we were like, are you off your nut, Dr. Hetty Fry? Are you off your bloody nut? You're saying that people should prefer the state to feed their children? That's exactly what she said. I think she realized how stupid she was because everyone was saying, you know what? You're a bloody communist. That's pure communism right there. And that's what we keep pointing out to this food program. It's just inching the communism. And a lot of people come back and they say, oh, no. Look at all these other nations like Sweden, all these other rich European nations. They all have school programs, school lunch programs. Yes, comparing us to other nations that have decided to embark on socialism for whatever reason doesn't mean that we need to do it as well. And I always ask, what did we do before? What did we do before 2015? What changed? What changed since then? It's obvious what changed. Our economy has bloody collapsed and people are losing their jobs and they can't afford to have kids, they can't afford to feed their kids, they can't afford to feed themselves. But if you look down at the comments, everybody knows if you want the government to feed your kids, you might be a communist. It's not misinformation. Canada's famous across the entire world for bloated government bureaucracy. A much better approach would be to give parents of school-aged children a boost in their tax credits, which means stop bloody taxing us so much so you can spend it overseas on all your vanity projects, and leave government out of supplying lunches. Exactly. The parents know best for their kids, not the state. The parents. Empower the parents. That's not what liberals do. They destroy the parents' ability to provide for their children, and then they step in with state benefits, and they say, "Oh, you're a meanie if you say you vote down these benefits," because your whole plan along the way was to destroy people's lives so that the state could replace them. If you don't believe me, watch my Chaos Agent video. Let's look at some more stats. This is bad, says Mario Zelaya. Food bank uses 4.1 million visits. So it's beyond the 2.2. It's 4.1 million visits in Toronto alone. More than half are newcomers to Canada. Well. 1 in 10 people in Toronto visit food banks. Wow. Aren't you proud, Canada? Aren't you proud for having voted the Liberals in for the past 10 years? And you had a chance this year, right, back in April, to change this parabolic increase in disaster and misery and death. You had a chance, but you decided to vote against your best interest. Elbows up, people. Right. I didn't know if that post was going to come back. So apparently now Canada is turning its assisted suicide regime into an organ donation supply chain. Yeah, it's as if the Liberals couldn't be evil enough of destroying the healthcare system with a fraudulent COVID vaccine that they coerced all their healthcare workers across the country. And I know no, look, healthcare is a provincial mandate. Yeah, whatever. This was a fish rotting from the head down. This was pushed right from the Prime Minister's seat. We saw what he said on TV. He called everyone who refused the injection basically misogynist and racist. He made them all second-class citizens, and everyone fell in line. Everyone fell in line. And then as a result, you probably lost more than 10% of your healthcare workers because you lost about 10% across the board there in the Canadian Armed Forces because you were using them as as an experiment as well by forcing them because they didn't have a choice. Oh, follow orders, even though it wasn't a real order; it was just an administrative requirement. But you did the same thing in healthcare throughout the country, and a lot of people left. And then they realized their errors, and then they tried to get those people back, and people said, "No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." So you're not going to get to fool me twice. And most of the people have left. They've gone down to work in the States, or they've gone on to other jobs, or they've done something else, but they will never go back to a system that abused them. And now, as a result, with less healthcare available, with the increase in population that we just showed you, the complete immigration dump that the Liberals have done to Canada, mass increase in people, stressing out all our social services. Well, next thing you know, there's not enough doctors to go around for anybody, or any healthcare workers, or registered nurses. And then people start waiting in line for months just to get an appointment to see a doctor so they can recommend them to see a specialist that'll take them more months before they even see that specialist, who will then maybe make them an appointment to use an MRI that they will wait months in order for that. And somewhere along the way, they might be one of the 76,000 people that died waiting for healthcare appointments so far in Canada since 2015 because the Liberals don't care. Well, they do care. They care about themselves and this massive plan that they are doing to destroy the country by killing all their Canadians off with these little slices everywhere. So then people get frustrated. They can't wait anymore for their health care. They're miserable. They have a miserable fucking life here in Canada now because of the Liberals. Can't get any health care. And some of them make this choice now. Well, you know what? I might as well end it all. So they go to Canada's medical assistance in dying, which we found out is just it just paralyzes you and you drown slowly to death with the medication that they give you, and you can't do anything because you're paralyzed and you're experiencing drowning as your lungs slowly fill up with fluids. It could take 5 minutes, could take a day. So they torture the poor souls to death, and then they want to harvest their organs. Yay! And they say we're not communists. We're becoming more and more like the Chinese communists every day. The level of evil being allowed and perpetrated in Canada by these Liberals is absolutely disgusting. Harvesting organs. Wonderful. What have we become, Canada, under Liberals? An unethical, immoral joke. A cultural Marxist hellhole. Everywhere you go, if you don't follow their ideology, they will call you a name. And we've seen what they do. We give them a little bit of power, they pull those levers like everything. Political prisoners, and all these bills that are putting through, wanting to arrest people without warrant, putting them in digital gulags. I'm telling you, a mountain of skulls does not happen overnight. It is slowly built up this way by capturing people's minds. So a little bit more on vaccines, I guess. Okay, so the shingles vaccine was okay. That's a bad post. Does prevent shingles, but yes, has a ton of side effects, such as lowering the risk of dementia and heart disease. Now, is that so? Right. Well, pointed out that shingles is a known adverse event of the mRNA gene therapy that was rebranded as the COVID-19 vaccine. And would you know it? Big Pharma had her shingles vaccine ready to go almost immediately as soon as they rolled out the COVID-19 vaccine. Shingrix or whatever it was. First shingles vaccine, Zostavax, was approved in 2006. A newer, more effective vaccine called Shingrix was approved in 2017. Okay, so I had those dates wrong. Approved in 2017, the vaccine used a different approach using a protein from a varicella zoster virus to create a stronger and more effective immune response. It is now the recommended shingles vaccine for healthy adults over 50. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to get it. I have no reason to trust vaccines anymore, especially after we saw the report that was buried that Rebel News published that we covered, I believe, yesterday. Might have been the day before. Oh, yes. Well, the far left easily loses its mind on a regular basis. And what you're seeing here is somebody from the BC NDP basically replicating a New Zealand indigenous dance thing that they do. And it works for them, especially with the tattoos, and especially when you have a group of them together as opposed to just one person. Actually, we've seen like individuals do this in their parliaments in New Zealand. It kind of brings the whole thing to a standstill, and the speaker is kind of like, I can't do anything. He just stands. He's got to wait for them to stop. But apparently, it's something that needs to be replicated. I'm not going to play it because the New Zealanders do it a lot better. But this is what is happening to the far left. It's all performance because when you start putting the facts to them that you're just screwing people over by abusing their money and you're not showing results other than enriching yourself and your friends, then they go into performances like this or other things, or they call you names. So apparently, Melanie Jolie, our minister of nothing, she's going on about yet another EV manufacturer. Paraco's new facility in St. Thomas will strengthen our domestic EV battery production while also bringing benefits to Ontario and Canada's manufacturing sectors of steel and aluminum. How many failed EV factories or failed EV battery factories or anything having to do with the climate scam electric production? Whether it's the EVs, the cars, the batteries for them, the windmills, none of them make money. None of them sell. They're all a disaster. There's no disposal method for the toxic materials. And insofar, Canadians have pretty well proven with their pocketbooks that they don't want this. They don't want this equipment. They don't want EVs in Canada. The sales have been continually dropping once they reached a bit of a peak because people realized in Canada that EVs are shit in the winter. You can't stay warm in them. They don't last long. Your battery's going to drain too fast in cold weather. People who grow up in Canada outside the cities can't use EVs effectively because they need to stay bloody warm. And our failed EV battery factories have pretty well proven this. And but obviously, when it comes to a liberal, reinforcing failure is one of the only other trips to the well that they know. So you either reinforce failure or you throw more money at it, or you reinforce failure.
Spent more time on this than I care to admit because I couldn't believe this. But Juno News just did this article on how the Liberals invited a convicted killer to advise Member of Parliaments on bail reform. And as you know, the Liberal Party turned down the Jail Not Bail Act proposed by Conservatives for political reasons. So they get the credit. They want to create their own version. And in creating their own version, they've invited this person. And a source came forward and they said that on an ongoing House of Commons study on bail reform conducted by the Standing Committee, it was confirmed by True North that a Liberal Member of Parliament invited a convicted killer to advise the government on potential changes to bail laws. And this is where it gets crazier. The person in question is Nicole Kish. She got a life sentence because she was a panhandler who then stabbed someone in the heart. The victim's last name is Hammond. He and his friend went bar hopping in 2007. He approached them at a bank and asked them for $20. The men responded rudely and a physical altercation ensued. So she and a group of other panhandlers attacked him and he died 3 days later. And fast forward to 2021, she was able to get a summer holiday. She was convicted in the 2007 stabbing. They granted her the ability to fly from BC, where she's serving her life sentence for second-degree murder, to Hamilton for a 5-day-long recreation visit with friends and family. Now guys, is this the type of country we want to live in? Where convicted killers are allowed 5 days long vacation and be able to advise our government on bail laws? I've never once heard of this in my life, where a convict could be invited to make such major and massive policy advisements with massive implications for our future and the future of our country. But this is what the Liberal Party seems to think is reasonable and normal. And while she maintains her innocence, it doesn't change the fact that she was convicted. As soon as that is set in place, criminals have no business advising us, law-abiding citizens, into what the future of jail and bail reform should look like. It's ridiculous.
Well, let's not forget that Hans Gruber of climate change there, Minister Guilbeault, is a convicted criminal himself. And he's been telling us what to do for years when it comes to their green scam BS. Just keeping an eye here on the question period. Stephanie Kuzi is up doing a statement by members. And typically there should probably be another statement. It's usually, are they going? No, is it still statement by members? Yes, it is. Right now it's the Bloc Québécois stating. Well, while we wait for them to come up, let's bring up our moose chart and we will look at the failed EV batteries while this chart comes up very slowly. Oh, there we go. There is so much information on this chart. Again, the link to this chart will be in the description as we've been putting it in. He's even got some links on here to leave him any information if you want. David was actually invited to appear in committee, a committee that he covered yesterday on one of his videos. But the problem is, I understand what he says. The invite was in his email, and we don't really check our emails too often anymore because that's inundated. So every once in a while, we'll go in and check the cache, and it goes, "Oh my goodness, I got this email." Well, you got it too late. And you need a special headset, apparently. You just can't use like your mic and your headset that you have at home. And and then of course, as he's trying to get everything together, he realized that, oh, I passed the due date to respond, which is too bad. And I'm wondering if he was asked to go because of all the massive amount of research that he has done, especially with it being right here in this moose chart. That is really too slow to move around. And at this rate, it's not going to load very quick. Look at this. Carney's direct conflicts, Ukraine rebuild, Carney investments, Carney stock conflicts. And you see here all these stocks that he has. So when they're talking about only 103 conflicts, they're really not talking about all these other stock options either. And the speaker is standing. And still statement by members. Ah, there we go. Look at this. All of Carney's assets. Right. Well, let's head on over to the House and bring up our question period. They always set up a little later today. And there he is, Aaron Gunn.
To Melissa Runhard, recipient of the National.
Well, just realized I didn't have the audio on. You were just listening to the Atmo music for about a minute. You know, this guy here, he's such a clown. And my current MP is a bit of a clown himself as well, because, you know, now I have a Liberal MP. And it's unfortunate that we don't get a choice when our unpreferred party gets elected in your riding, and you end up with somebody representing you that doesn't represent your ethics or your morals or your values. But they still have a job to do. They still have a duty to perform in recognizing the people in their riding. Or they can take this opportunity for statements by members to do what looks like Michael Barrett is doing right now.
The Prime Minister set up 3 multi-billion-dollar investment funds in Bermuda and the Cayman Islands, shielding profits from Canadian taxes. And these are funds that could line the Prime Minister's pockets through future bonus payments. Canadians deserve to know that the Prime Minister is making decisions in the public interest, not his own financial interest. That's why it was shocking that Liberals voted to try to shut down this investigation to improve transparency for Canadians. While Liberals vote to protect powerful politicians, Conservatives will stand up for hardworking Canadian taxpayers. We will not back down. We will defend hardworking Canadian taxpayers, and we're going to hold this Liberal Prime Minister accountable. Here.
The Honourable Member for Vaudreuil.
Recognize the incredible work of the Pure Art Foundation and the group of 39 Canadian.
So when I talk about not having a choice when it comes to certain things happening regarding politicians, imagine all the people in the Canadian Armed Forces who retired with their most hated prime minister in power, giving them your release certificate. Oh, thank you for all these years of service. Here's a certificate for you, signed by the Prime Minister Blackface. That's probably why, on top of being turned into a second-class citizen as a serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces for refusing their jibby jab that went and injured and killed some of my comrades, and then they were abandoned by Veterans Affairs saying, "Oh no, the vaccine didn't harm them at all. You have no recourse with us. Bye-bye." Aside from that, I didn't want that certificate, and I certainly didn't want my medals after 38 years, or any kind of reminder of the shit and abuse that the last 10 years of my service brought under this Liberal government. Stuff that I might just get through this last bit. If I just get through the last 2 years of retirement, make it a nice 40. Nope. Didn't happen. You know, and of course, we know that some of our Canadian Armed Forces members now have been relegated to having to independently sue to get some help. Because, I mean, what are you going to do? If you have myocarditis that started right after you took the jibby jab that, you know, you had to take to keep your job in the military, and then all of a sudden, you know, then you go and there's like, oh, well, you know, is it myocarditis? It's only mild. No, it's permanent heart damage. You're not going to live long with that. What's the life expectancy for myocarditis? 5 years, 10 years? Whatever it is, you shorten their lifespan to next to nothing. You damage their heart. There's no going back. Once a heart muscle is damaged, that's it. Is there any wonder that I left my certificate signed by Prime Minister Blackface back at my old squadron, back there with my medals and my other certificates and whatever hell it is else they wanted to give me? I know the lads in the shop built me a nice little shadow box to put the flag in there that they flew for me, but I can't. It hurts too much. It swells up too much anger and misery just to think about it, just to deal with it. If I had it sitting here on my wall, love me wall that I don't have, it would just be a reminder of how I had to grab my ankles or walk out the door while grabbing my ankles. Right. Now, what's this person just gesticulating about here? Were they? Oh, looks like we are starting.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 10 costly budgets, deficit budgets from these Liberals, they've ballooned the debt, the cost of groceries and housing. Canadians now deserve an affordable budget for affordable living. The Prime Minister based on food prices, but those prices have only gone up, and the number of people using food banks has doubled. So will the government work in cooperation with us, with our proposals for an affordable budget and affordable living? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we will certainly work towards affordability with an affordable budget, but the opposition leader is making proposals that he wouldn't even put in his own election platform. 6 months ago, Canadians gave us a mandate to present a plan to spend less and invest more, and that's what we're going to have on November 4th. And I hope that the opposition leader will not trigger Christmas elections and that he will support our budget. Clearly, the Government House Leader doesn't want to trigger an expensive election over an expensive budget. But Canadians should not have to choose between an expensive budget or an expensive election. They should be able to choose an affordable budget for affordable living. And that's what we're proposing. For example, scrapping the tax, the industrial carbon tax on farmers so that Canadians could buy affordable food. Will the Prime Minister accept that proposal? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we announced a series of steps going to affordability, including school food programs and automatic registration for benefits that should reduce poverty among Canadians. But each time we propose an affordability measure, the opposition leader orders his troops, he orders them to vote against them. So which foot is he dancing on? Either he wants to help Canadians or he wants a Christmas election. Which is it?
Mr. Speaker, Canadians cannot afford a 10th costly budget that drives up the price of groceries and housing. What they need, in fact, is an affordable budget for an affordable life. This Prime Minister, though, has driven up the cost of the bureaucracy, the consultants, and therefore inflation, so Canadians are paying more for everything. We have put forward common sense proposals to make life more affordable, like eliminating all the hidden taxes on food. Will the Prime Minister put partisanship aside and work with us on an affordable budget for an affordable life?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, happy days, Mr. Speaker. There will be an affordable budget for an affordable life presented in this House on November 4th. And we certainly hope the opposition leader will order his troops to vote for it instead of ordering the very nervous ones to vote against it and cause a very expensive Christmas election here in Canada. Will the opposition leader tell his very nervous troops to vote for our affordable budget on November 4th?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There he goes, trying to use a costly budget to trigger a costly election. And we know what he wants to distract from the fact that this Prime Minister has broken every promise he's made by triggering a costly election on a costly budget. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians shouldn't have to choose between a costly budget and a costly election. They can choose an affordable budget with an affordable life. And we're putting forward the proposals on how to do that, like eliminating the industrial carbon tax on our farmers who feed us. Will they take our positive, collaborative ideas for an affordable budget and affordable life? Yes or no?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
There he goes again, Mr. Speaker, with the imaginary taxes. More and more and increasingly, Mr. Speaker, in his own caucus he has imaginary friends. So this leader of the opposition understands, as all Canadians do, that they gave us a mandate 6 months ago for stability, for calm, not slogans, solutions, affordability, get a trade deal with the United States, and yes, Mr. Speaker, bring a plan and a budget to build a Canadian economy very strong.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that member and the Prime Minister trying to provoke a costly election on their costly budget. They're again playing costly games. But this is not about games. This is about the people lined up at food banks, 2.2 million of them. That number has doubled since this government took office 10 years ago. It's about Jacqueline Stone, who says it's heartbreaking. It's hard. It's just tough making ends meet. She says that she feels embarrassed and disheartened to have to turn back items when she's at the checkout and her bank account goes empty. Will the government reverse course and bring in an affordable budget so that people like Jacqueline can have an affordable life?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, let's hear from another person in Canada who's doing really important work as well, and that's Kirsten Beardsley, the CEO of Canada Food Banks. And she said with proper long-term investment and improved access, these kinds of initiatives are showing early promise for greater adoption and expansion. She also said that we should make the school food program permanent, that we should help the lowest income workers, Mr. Speaker, that we should increase access to affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. That's all in our budget, Mr. Speaker. We know, we've been talking about what's coming. We hope these guys will get on board and stop standing in the way of Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberal programs do not feed children. They feed bureaucracy, consultants, lobbyists, and insiders. And we know that because since they brought in all of these promises, we've seen food bank use more than double. By the government's own admission, 25% of kids go to school hungry after 10 years of these Liberal policies. Why? Because the more this government spends, the more things cost. Every dollar they spend comes out of the pockets of hardworking Canadians. Haven't they learned their lesson after 10 years that we need an affordable budget so Canadians can have affordable lives?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the Leader of the Opposition's driving for a Christmas election. He'd rather do that, Mr. Speaker, than stand up for the moms and dads across this country who are looking for affordable childcare, who want us to make the school food program permanent, Mr. Speaker, who want to invest in women's safety, Mr. Speaker, in shelters and homes and wraparound housing, Mr. Speaker. That's what Canadians want. They want things that are going to help their families and their communities, and these guys are threatening to take it all away.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the government is in a minority position. If they want their budget to pass, they have to negotiate with someone. But this morning, the government House Leader confirmed that he is talking to the opposition, but he isn't negotiating. He himself says so. He doesn't call it negotiations. He says that the opposition's demands in terms of principles are out of the question. In short, he's willing to talk, but not negotiate. He'll talk, he'll chat, he'll discuss, but that's it. So does he want this budget to pass, or is he trying to trigger a Christmas election? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I always enjoy discussing with my counterparts and members on all sides of the House. Obviously, she should speak to her colleague from Gaspésie-les-Îles de la Madeleine or from Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. I've had very interesting discussions about some very important projects in their ridings. Maybe she has some, and I'd be pleased to dialogue, discuss, negotiate, whatever you want to call it, with her and their leader as well. The honourable member for Saint-Jean. The Liberals simply don't want to negotiate for us to support their budget. They don't want to invest in health care. They don't want to correct the injustice in old age pensions. They don't want to transfer money to housing and infrastructure without strings attached. They don't want to give Quebec back the $814 million they stole to buy Canadian votes. They don't want to help young people get property. They just don't want to. It seems what they do want is to call an election at Christmas. Why don't they just come clean? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the only question is, who from the Bloc or the Conservative Party wants to trigger a Christmas election most? The Bloc has given us a series of non-negotiable demands. The Bloc itself is talking about non-negotiable demands. How do you negotiate something that's non-negotiable? They talk about money that Quebec is owed. The Conservative leader wants the deficit brought down. The Bloc wants more spending. We're trying to strike a balance. The honourable member for Joliette-Nanawan. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are responsible for the current housing crisis. The PBO calculated rents have increased by 26% just because of the federal government's excessive immigration policies. All tenants, including immigrants, are paying 26% more in rent because of the Liberals. To correct this fiasco, the Rapid Housing Initiative has to be renewed and made permanent, and Quebec's share must be transferred to Quebec unconditionally. That's the minimum. Why are the Liberals refusing to include this in the budget, even to the point of threatening an election?
Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the question.
For supporting affordable housing, and we are focused on homelessness first and foremost. Mr. Speaker, we are dedicating $1 billion, the first billion in the budget, to solving homelessness, working with cities and towns across the country to get supportive modular housing built, transitional housing to help people out of shelters, off of the street, and into a safe place to call home. We are committed to affordable housing, and we will follow through.
The honourable member for Newcombe-Willenbury.
Every dollar the Liberals spend come right out of the pockets of Canadians. Under Trudeau, the Liberals' consumer carbon tax made everything more expensive, while their record spending led to higher prices and lower paychecks, with the debt burden falling on younger Canadians most of all. Now this Prime Minister is doubling down in his budget with an industrial carbon tax, more costs, and billions more in deficits. Justin Trudeau already mortgaged Canadians' future. So why is this banker Prime Minister foreclosing on it?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, while the party opposite is focused on their leader and what he said last week, we are laser focused on Canadians. On November 4th, we are going to table a generational budget, Mr. Speaker. We are going to invest in Canadians, we are going to invest in Canada, and we are going to build. We are going to invest in infrastructure, defense, housing. Mr. Speaker, we believe in Canada. I ask the party opposite to support our budget on November 4th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newcastle
I ask
Glenbury.
the party opposite, haven't Canadians sacrificed enough? For 10 years, they've paid the price for a Liberal carbon tax. This government falsely claimed would put more money back in their pockets than it took out. Now, this Prime Minister is pulling the same stunt with his industrial carbon tax. He claims there's no impact, even as it increases costs on farm equipment, fertilizer, and ultimately groceries. Conservatives want an affordable plan. Will the Prime Minister scrap his industrial carbon tax in his budget so families can eat again?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, while the party opposite is focused on imaginary taxes, we are focused on real tax cuts, cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians, cutting the GST for first-time homebuyers. Interest rates are going in. We're moving forward with initiatives like the school food program, personal support workers credit. Mr. Speaker, we're focused on affordability for Canadians. I wish the party opposite would stop the rhetoric, get on board, support our budget November 4th. Thank you.
The honourable member for Algonquin Renfrew Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals aren't satisfied with 2.2 million Canadians visiting a food bank a month. The new fuel tax will chew up any savings at the gas pump. Grocery prices haven't come down since COVID. Now, we'll never get a break at the cash register. Will the Liberals kill the new fuel standards tax so people can afford to eat?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The members opposite remain fixated on imaginary taxes, and on this side of the House, we remain focused on the supports for Canadian families to help them fight food insecurity. We do this with the program, for example, the National School Food Program, which we are making permanent, the disability benefit, the dental care, child care, and a national housing strategy. Time and time again, we are there for Canadian families, and members opposite vote against these investments in our communities.
The honourable member for Algonquin Renfrew Pembroke.
The new fuel tax will put more ethanol in your gas tank, so you'll have to visit the pumps more often. It'll also cut supply, so the fuel will cost more. When fuel goes up in price, the cost of everything goes up. The Liberals have a chance to kill the new fuel standards tax with the budget. Will the Liberals use the budget to kill the new fuel tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we empathize with struggling families, but unlike Conservatives, our government is stepping up to help them with affordability. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians, reduced GST on new home purchases, significantly reduced childcare fees, cut the cost of basic dental coverage, and funded healthy food in schools. Common sense says when families save money on their taxes and on childcare and the like, they have more to spend on groceries. But common sense doesn't seem to be so common in the Conservative Party today because they've opposed all of these cost savings measures. Canadians want to know, where are the common sense Conservatives?
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, if their policies worked, why are over 700,000 children lining up at food banks? The Prime Minister promised he'd be judged by the cost at the grocery store. Well, the verdict is in. Food inflation up 4%. We now have 2.2 million people visiting food banks in a single month. And by the federal government's own analysis, a $1.3 billion food packaging tax that's baked right into the cost of every meal. So while Canadians are skipping meals, these Liberals are feasting on new taxes. Will the Prime Minister stop cooking up new hidden costs and scrap his food packaging tax so Canadians can afford to live?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Conservative members seem to enjoy talking Canada down, talk about imaginary taxes. It's almost as if they're cheering for the LA Dodgers measures instead of Canada's team last night. Mr. Speaker, while Conservatives vote against measures that support Canadians, we're investing in them. We're building major projects, building homes right across the country. Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian unionized worker. We're putting people to work, strengthening communities, building a future that Canada can be proud of. So here's my question. Will Conservatives vote for the budget, or will they trigger an next Miss election?
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akia-Wenrack. The Prime Minister said he'd be judged on the price of food, and now we see the results. Grocery prices keep going up. In fact, twice as fast as inflation. That's the Liberal record after 10 years of neglect. Can the Prime Minister, in his budget, scrap the taxes that affect food and let Canadians live affordably? The Honourable Minister of Transformation. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers and Canadians judged the opposition leader and how his plan was not credible or serious. We, on this side, have a plan to grow the Canadian economy and also to make life more affordable. We're going to make the national school program permanent, and I would invite, if there's any doubt about how effective our program is, which one of his colleagues called garbage, come to my riding. We'll visit some of these places, the United Way and so on, and see how effective the programs are. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, and Wenrack. Mr. Speaker, these Liberals are so effective that there are over 2 million Canadians using food banks monthly. 2.2 million Canadians. That's the record of this Liberal government after 10 years. Shame on those people. And this is what people are beginning to realize. The more the Liberals spend, the more things get expensive for Canadians. Can the Prime Minister scrap food taxes in his budget and allow Canadians to have an affordable life? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, he'd like to talk about a direct impact on Canadians and on the cost of living. Let's talk about the National School Food Program. That's $800 per family. What about the fact that we've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians? That's also $800 per family. And what about the child benefit, which raised so many children out of poverty? Those are all programs they would have scrapped. And while we're at it, let's talk about the dental care program. 20,000 people in his riding alone have had new access to dental care. That's the thing. Those are the things they'd get rid of on the other side of the House, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the forestry industry and its workers and municipalities were on the Hill this morning. Chantier Bougameau, Domtar, Arbec, the Quebec Association of Forestry Contractors, and also Unifor, the Rive of Antoine Labelle, and the Mayor of Ferme-Neuve. They're all here to demand that Ottawa advance 50% of the amounts payable in countervailing duties, pending reimbursement at the end of the dispute. They expect the federal government to finally support Quebec's forestry industry. When will this government finally take action? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, I welcome them here on the House. I'd be happy to meet with them. I know many of them well. We work with Unifor on other files, and obviously the prevailing situation in the forestry sector has to do with the completely unjustifiable tariffs coming from the White House. So we will support the softwood lumber industry. We will work with them. We already have loan guarantees, which is supported by BDC for $500 million. I'd be happy to meet with my colleague to find solutions for companies in his riding. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, if Donald Trump's threat to add another 10% in tariffs, if that should materialize, Quebec's forestry industry will be the hardest hit of all industries in Canada, and yet Ottawa's doing nothing. The financial aid promised in August has still not been released. Our workers are still not protected by a wage subsidy, and our companies are still paying billions in illegal countervailing duties without any federal support. Mr. Speaker, Quebec's forestry industry represents 130,000 jobs in 900 municipalities. When will the Liberals take this crisis seriously and do something? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, one thing is clear. This government will go to bat for jobs in the softwood lumber industry, period. And that's why we're working every day with the industry. I had meetings last week. I spoke with the Quebec Minister of Industry last week, Minister Frichette, the Minister of Natural Resources and myself, and the Minister responsible for intergovernmental relations. We are on it, and the fund, one mustn't say that the funds are not available. They have been released. They are available, and I'd be happy to work with my colleague further on this issue.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government brags every day about all the money they spend, but it's not their money. It's the paychecks of hard-working Canadians. It's money that families could be spending to put food on the table. But instead, this Prime Minister uses it to feed his endless bureaucracy. They snuck in a hidden industrial carbon tax on fertilizer and farm equipment that hits families at the checkout line. Canada should be the breadbasket for the world, but under this Liberal government, Canada can't even feed itself. Will the Prime Minister put partisanship aside and scrap the industrial carbon tax in his budget so Canadian farmers can feed this country?
Hear, hear, hear. The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, Halloween has come early for the Conservatives this year. With their imaginary taxes, their ghoulish views on Canadians, calling Canadian school food programs disgusting, calling the RCMP despicable, and demanding a $56 billion cut that would get OAS and GIS that seniors rely on gutted. Mr. Speaker, today seniors will see in their bank accounts an increase on their OAS and their GIS deposited right into their accounts. This is Canada's largest anti-poverty initiative, and Canadians know that they can trust us to ensure that we have their backs.
Well done. I see that the Honourable Secretary of State is wearing a button. Unless it says "Have a nice day," it would not be permitted. So. Anyway, I just to let the member know. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Here, here. Liberals keep saying everything's great, but the only thing growing faster than their debt is the food bank line, while they play hide and seek on taxes. Taxing farmers with a hidden industrial carbon tax while 2.2 million people visit the food bank every single month is insanity. 20% of them work full-time, 33% are children. Anyone but the Liberals can see Canadians are going to bed with empty stomachs on empty promises. Conservatives have a plan to help farmers thrive and families eat. So I ask again, will the Prime Minister support Conservatives' plan to scrap the industrial carbon tax in his budget so Canadian farmers can affordably feed this country?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Canadians know that there are no taxes on their food. So while the Conservatives talk about imaginary taxes, this government is taking real action to support seniors in this country. We're cutting red tape. We're building homes faster. We've introduced dental care that now more than 2 million seniors have access to. We're building an economy that works for everyone. The Conservatives, however, have a record of pushing the retirement age higher, cutting benefits, and leaving seniors behind. While they're voting against every support for seniors and threatening to do that with the upcoming budget, we're empowering older Canadians. We're protecting them and having their back.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, every dollar this Liberal government spends comes out of the pockets of Kitchener Centre residents. Hidden, not imaginary, hidden taxes like the food packaging tax is baked into the sticker price, driving up the cost of food. Will the Liberals' own number shows that Canadians' $1.3 billion it will be in costs over the next decade for this tax. The more they spend, the more Canadians pay. Will this Prime Minister put partisanship aside and scrap the food packaging tax so Canadians can afford to live?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Speaker, all across Ontario, families are benefiting from, let me get this, Mr. Speaker, $16 a day for childcare, down from $70 a day. Exactly. Mr. Speaker, this is phenomenal, and it's adding thousands of dollars in the pockets of Canadian families every single month, Mr. Speaker. That's the power of investing in families. That's the power of investing in children. And that's why Canadians trust us to have their backs and know that these guys would cut everything they rely on in a heartbeat.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Étrements-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister wants to be judged on the basis of grocery store prices. Ironically, Liberal hidden taxes on food are driving up grocery costs. We're talking about the industrial carbon tax, the food packaging tax, and clean fuel regulations that increase the cost of transporting, producing, and marketing food. The more the Liberals spend, the more Canadians pay at the grocery store. Will the Prime Minister eliminate these food taxes in his budget and make life more affordable for Canadians? The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Across the way, they're still talking about these imaginary taxes. I spoke to the Breakfast Club of Canada today, and that's an organization that supports many children to have access to the nutrition program in school. They say that making the National Scoot program permanent is an important step for health, learning, and the well-being of children, as well as for social and economic resilience in Canada. I hope my colleagues across the way will support this budget and support this program being permanent. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Étrements-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, figures are stubborn. Food inflation is skyrocketing, up by 4%. Food Banks Canada reported a record 2.2 million visits in a single month this week. 20% of food bank users work full-time. 33% of users are children. The Conservatives have a plan to make life affordable for Canadians again. I repeat, will the Prime Minister eliminate these food taxes in his budget and make life affordable for Canadians? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, it's fascinating to hear the Conservatives tell us about imaginary taxes. There are no taxes on groceries. I'd repeat it for the benefit of the colleagues across the way. If they want to talk about real things, not imaginary things, let's talk about the dental care program that helps about 20,000 people in her riding. How about the food program in schools? Thousands of people in her riding. What about other programs that will help 100,000 kids in Quebec? The very programs that this school food that these agencies support. They only have a plan to sacrifice these programs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's forestry industry, anchored in my home province of British Columbia, is not just a regional asset, it's a national economic engine. I recently met with BC Council of Forest Industries and forest sector leaders to discuss how we can support this valuable sector that provides over 200,000 jobs and contributes over $25 billion to our GDP. The United States tariffs on softwood lumber are hurting both Canadian producers and American consumers and related industries. While the Conservatives want us to sign any sort of deal, our government's working towards getting the best deal for Canadians and for the impacted sectors. In the meantime, can the Minister of Industry...
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
I would like to thank my colleague for his important question. Indeed, he is fighting for the Canadian softwood workers, as we are as a government, because we will stand strong against these unjustified tariffs. We'll make sure that we get a good deal, but meanwhile, we're there to support, for them to have access to funding to support their workers, to adapt and pivot, and eventually to make sure that the world knows that the Canadian lumber in Canada actually is the best in the world. So we'll continue to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The Liberal government has blown billions more on consultants, on foreign aid vanity projects, and $1 billion legal gun grab that they themselves admitted won't work. The result has been higher taxes, higher prices, a higher cost of living, and an entire generation of young people who do not believe that they will ever do better than their parents. Canadians are cutting back, they're skipping meals, they're lining up at food banks in record numbers, while this Prime Minister maxes out the nation's credit card like it's someone else's problem. Will they finally stop the waste? First, stop the taxes, stop the inflationary spending, and put forward an affordable budget for an affordable life here in Canada.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I've got great news for Conservatives. We've actually got a way to help 5.5 million Canadians with the cost of food. Automatic federal benefits. Through Budget 2025, we're going to pre-file taxes for up to 5.5 million Canadians. This will ensure Canadians get the benefits they are entitled to. Wow. I asked the party opposite, on November 4th, you have a choice to make. Will you let the most vulnerable Canadians get these federal benefits, or block the checks and force a Christmas election? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, that minister is in complete denial. Here, he sent $8 million to Vietnam to create gender-just rice. What even is that? The endless cycle of deficits, of taxes, of inflations have crushed families. They've crushed young people. They've crushed workers, and their arrogance blinds them to the damage that they themselves have done. If they want to pass a budget, it's simple. Stop the reckless spending, stop the inflation, stop the hidden food taxes. It's up to them to listen up to Canadians and put forward an affordable budget for an affordable life.
Yeah. The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives are focused on a revolt in caucus, we are laser focused on Canadians. On November 4th, we're going to table a generational budget. We're going to invest in Canada. We're going to invest in Canadians. We're going to build. We're going to invest in infrastructure, defense, housing, aerospace, and national projects. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe in Canada. I ask the party opposite to cut the rhetoric, support our budget on November 4th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We have to try to not be too provocative, because provocation creates disorder, and that's a problem. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
The only thing that's revolting are those answers. The Prime Minister promised Canadians he would stop outrageous spending on high-priced consultants. Only 6 months in, this promise is broken. He's already increased spending on consultants by 37%. That's $6 billion. Whether it's Arrive scam, McKinsey and Company, or now the CRA call center, the Liberals will always find a way to pay their consultant friends the big bucks. That's right. So when they table their budget next week, how many more billions can Canadians expect to pay Liberal insiders? Good.
The Honourable Minister for Transformation. Mr. Speaker, we've received a very clear mandate from Canadians to reduce the use of consultants, to make the government more efficient, spend less to invest more. That's precisely what we'll do in this historic budget on November 4th to build the very foundations of a strong economy in Canada. I hope the Conservatives will support it.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Je pense que no. Canadians line up at food banks. Liberal consultants line their pockets. Yesterday, the president of Shared Services Canada admitted they learned a very hard lesson on the contract for CRA call centres, which quadrupled to $190 million under the Liberals' watch. The same hard lesson they learned when GC Strategies blew the roof off of the ArriveCan contract. Yep. So I will ask again, how much will Canadians have to pay to Liberal friends and insiders in next week's budget?
The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as I was mentioning, we received a clear mandate from Canadians to have a government that is more effective. We will always ensure we have the best value for money for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. And while we are preparing to present our budget on November 4th to spend less and invest more, we want to make sure we get the best value for Canadian to build the strongest economy in the G7.
For Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals blew nearly $1 billion on a gun grab even their own minister admits does not work. He was caught on tape telling the truth. It's a waste of money. Yep, right. The OPP wants no part of it, and the only police force they found to enforce their vanity project, its chief is related to a Liberal MP. What? This isn't safety, it's political theatre with a $750 million price tag. When will the Prime Minister scrap this farce and go after criminals instead of law-abiding Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as I announced several weeks ago, we have a pilot project taking place in Cape Breton, which will be expanded to across Canada over the coming weeks. We look forward to law-abiding Canadians abiding by the law. As you know, Mr. Speaker, we have brought in many measures to ensure that criminals are off our streets, including Bill C-14, which I hope the party opposite supports. It is part of a comprehensive plan to attack crime in this country, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bow River.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is pushing ahead with a costly and misguided gun grab that ignores the real problem: illegal guns smuggled from the U.S. Instead, they're targeting the most responsible and law-abiding Canadians. In Cape Breton, the mayor says he wasn't consulted, the local police union was blindsided, and the project is run by the brother-in-law of the local Liberal MP. Wow. Canadians need an affordable budget for an affordable life. $750 million is being wasted on this program. Mr. Speaker, when the budget pressures are so high, why are Liberals wasting $750 million on political optics and nepotism instead of cracking down on real criminals and keeping Canadians safe?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, our government is doing everything we can to ensure that guns are off our streets. This includes Bill C-12, Mr. Speaker. This includes $1.3 billion investment at our border, 1,000 new RCMP, 1,000 new CBSA officers. We have Bill C-14, which will address the issues around bail. We'll also have a compensation program which will ensure that law-abiding Canadians can get compensation for prohibited weapons, Mr. Speaker, which we hope will be expanded across Canada. This is our approach to a range of issues involving crime, Mr. Speaker. I invite the party opposite to support these initiatives.
The honourable member for York Centre.
This year, the Liberal government will spend $1 billion on interest every week. And while the Prime Minister is planning a record-breaking deficit, his accounting gimmick may put Canada's credit at risk. But last week, the Prime Minister told students they'll have to sacrifice even more. Canadians shouldn't be made to sacrifice. After a decade of Liberal failure, they've sacrificed enough. Yes. They don't want more Liberal debt, Liberal waste, and Liberal corruption. Why is this Prime Minister spending like Justin Trudeau on steroids?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Inflation in Canada has been within the Bank of Canada's target range for over 21 months in a row. The Bank of Canada also cut rates again today by 25 basis points. That's more savings, lower mortgages, and real relief for Canadians. While Conservatives seem to root for a recession in Canada, we're making the investments that are needed for our economy to grow and prosper. Conservatives shout slogans all they want, but we'll continue to implement solutions. They divide, we'll deliver. That's progress. That's what Canadians deserve, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for York Centre.
This Liberal member doesn't understand how bad it is out there. More than a quarter of Canadians cannot afford to eat. And now the Prime Minister is telling a room full of students they'll have to sacrifice even more. Young people sacrificed enough. They've already sacrificed home ownership. And yesterday, CTV reported that young Canadians can't even land a minimum wage job. Speaker, question: will the Liberal budget get spending under control so young Canadians can start affording everyday life?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Speaker, lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7, a AAA credit rating, an inflation rate within the Bank of Canada's target range, job numbers that exceeded expectations by 83% last month. Those are Canada's economic fundamentals. And Citibank CEO just last week said Canada, relative to other G7 countries, has debt dynamics and fiscal space that, if used wisely, would unlock a lot of opportunities in this country. That's exactly what we're focused on, Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2025, unlocking opportunities for all Canadians.
The honourable member for Foothills.
We have just learned that India has placed 30% tariff on Canadian peas. This is on top of the 100% tariffs already in place from China. As a result, 80% of Canada's pea markets now face tariffs worldwide. This is putting Canadian farmers at risk as prices have dropped more than 40%. The Prime Minister and his team was just in India. and now they're in China. Every time they go somewhere, it gets worse.
That's right.
What is this government going to do to ensure that our farmers get the tariff relief they need to ensure that they can stay in business?
Right on.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government and our Prime Minister have been working hard to ensure that Canadian farmers have access to markets around the world. Part of exactly that, cutting deals with more and more countries to ensure that Canadian products, Canadian farmers can sell their products to more and more markets around the world. And that is exactly what we've been doing from Singapore to Malaysia. These are the things that our government is working hard on. Instead of talking Canada down, Mr. Speaker, our government can work with other governments to ensure that markets are available to Canadian producers.
The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, one of the best ways to strengthen our Canadian identity is to give more people an opportunity to discover the places, stories, and landscapes that define us. From national museums to parks and historic sites, these shared spaces remind us of who we are. But for many families, the cost of every outing has to be factored into the budget. Can the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and Minister responsible for official languages clarify how our government is helping Canadians explore and celebrate their heritage while keeping these experiences accessible to all? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, last summer, the Strong Canada Pass meant families could discover an incredible country by reducing costs. It was a resounding success. More than 200,000 children enjoyed free admission to national museums. Visitor numbers increased by 15%. Participating provincial museums saw a 26% increase in youth attendance. Parks Canada sites saw attendance increase by between 9 and 20%. We are thrilled that the Strong Canada Pass will be back in the winter and the summer 2026, so Canadians can keep discovering the most beautiful country in the world. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Milieu-Ferme. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised to negotiate a softwood lumber agreement with the U.S. today. The forestry sector is threatened with tariffs of up to 55%. Do you know what 55% tariffs mean in my riding of Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean? It means 8,000 jobs at risk, families that just can't pay their bills at the end of the month. Our workers deserve better. Since this Prime Minister took office, tariffs have tripled. Why do the Liberals always hurt forestry workers and their families instead of helping them? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, I understand the anger displayed by my colleague, and I share it because 55% tariffs on our softwood lumber industry is absolutely unacceptable. And this is why this government, on this side, we are here to defend our workers. We're there with the industry. We understand they're going through a crisis right now. We're going to hold their hands. We're going to make sure they can get through this tough patch, and we'll be there with support. We are able to have good conversations, my colleague and myself. We work well together. I'll be happy to help him. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the forestry sector is under attack from American tariffs now standing at 45%. In Chaudière-Appalaches, the forestry sector represents $780 million in employment income. This big banker was supposed to fix everything, right? The result is that it costs Europeans less to ship their wood from Germany across the Atlantic by boat than to ship lumber from Saint-Théophile, right at the American border, Mr. Speaker. Wow, what a great negotiator. Bravo. My question, will the Prime Minister defend forestry workers? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, the answer is clear. Yes, 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 yes. We will be there for the forestry sector because we believe in it, but not just because of that. We know there are things we cannot control. We can't control the administration in the U.S., but there are things we can control. We will focus on the support to our workers, our businesses, and we will ensure to be there while they go through this crisis. We will support them, and we will build, through major national projects, a lot of demand for our sector.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill South.
Every single dollar this Liberal Prime Minister spends comes straight out of the pockets of Canadians through higher taxes, higher deficits, and higher inflation. While food bank use surges to 2.2 million visits per month, this Prime Minister thinks it's a brilliant idea to blow $8.2 million on gender-just low-carbon rice in Vietnam. While the Liberals feed their bloated DEI bureaucracy, Canadians are making sacrifices by skyrocketing food prices, record housing costs, and rising unemployment. So when will this out-of-touch Liberal Prime Minister stop funding his radical DEI programs, stop lecturing working Canadians, and finally deliver an affordable budget for an affordable life?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, every time the food banks report comes out, I read it. I read what the recommendations are and what those organizations that are focused on reducing poverty and food insecurity in Canada recommend that our government does. Our government recommends that we undertake measures like the National School Food Program, a program which one Conservative member from Newfoundland said last week, garbage, Mr. Speaker. We are investing in our social safety net. We're investing in programs that support families. We are investing in Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Well, that side, the Conservatives, talk them down every chance they get.
I don't want to ask members to start from the top answering questions because it eats up time. So let's keep that in mind. The honourable member from Labrador.
Mr. Speaker, the Arctic has been home to Indigenous peoples for countless generations. Inuit Nunangat stands at the heart of Canada's identity, its security, and its future. Last week, the Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs was in Iceland at the Arctic Circle Assembly, advancing partnerships and Canada's Arctic leadership. Can the Minister tell this House how the new government is acting decisively? They're arguing over there, Mr. Speaker, because they think they're still in caucus. The new government is acting decisively while collaborating with Indigenous leadership to build Canada's north, upholding our sovereignty and securities as threats increase.
The Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the world views Canada as an Arctic nation and is watching how we lead. As climate and geopolitical risks emerge, our government is taking action. We are building partnerships with Nordic countries like the Ice Pact, where Polar Max icebreakers will be built right here in Canada and Finland. We have new Arctic radar stations to boost our defense and enhance early warning systems. We just appointed an Arctic ambassador and will have consulates in Alaska and Greenland. These are some examples of our Arctic leadership where we will build, protect, and empower Canada's north.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister stands to make tens of millions of dollars in future bonus pay from free registered investment funds in Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. Canadians deserve to know the extent to which the Prime Minister is abusing offshore tax havens. So a simple question, how many other investments does the Prime Minister have in offshore tax havens? Just an answer. Good job.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, Canada has one of the strongest, most stringent ethics regimes in the world. It applies to every single person in this House after a very successful career.
I think, again, I don't like to do this because it eats up time, but I can't hear, so I need to have the Minister repeat the answer from the top.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, and as all members know, we live under one of the strongest, most stringent ethics regimes in the world. That applies to every single member in this House, including the Prime Minister. He has complied stringently, in fact, very proactively with all of these requirements, and the Ethics Commissioner and he, as obviously, have reached in terms of what his filings are, in terms of the screens and the ethics screens that he's put in place. This Prime Minister has gone above and beyond in complying with all matters of the law.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are suffering one of the worst affordability crises in generations. 60% are having trouble meeting their monthly expenses. Half are using credit cards or borrowing money for daily needs, paying interest rates of 19% or more. Food bank usage has doubled since 2019. People shouldn't have to struggle like this in a country as wealthy as Canada. What steps is this government taking to make sure Canadians don't have to go into debt just to feed their families?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm really grateful for that question because the government's taking a number of steps and has been taking steps for a number of years to make sure that Canadians can actually feed their families. For example, the Canada Child Benefit that's lifted 400,000 children out of poverty, Mr. Speaker. That's indexed to inflation. Mr. Speaker, the index to inflation benefits for seniors. Mr. Speaker, the work that we've done on employment insurance to make sure that employees who lose their jobs can actually keep that money while they are on claim. Mr. Speaker, I will tell you that this government will stand with workers, we will stand with families, and I sure hope the member opposite will vote for a budget that is
That brings question period to an end. We'll wait a minute. We have a point of order. Yes.
In describing a member of this House, and I would ask him to withdraw and apologize.
I will review the matter and get back to the House if necessary. Yeah, we'll have take a brief few seconds. Entre-temps,
All right. Well, that was question period. I can see that Melanie Jolie has been actually doing her best to actually answer questions. And difficult position. I mean, there's nothing you can do about softwood lumber tariffs. Canada has been subject to recurring softwood lumber tariffs repeatedly over the past 60 years that I've been paying, well, last 50 years that I've been paying attention. Comes and goes. I've seen so many mills just stay closed and stagnant for like half a decade, and then next thing you know, they start up again. And then they go stagnant again, over and over and over. Let's check to a different scene here. As well, there were plenty of other things brought up in the House, but repeatedly, you can see that the Liberals continue to gaslight Canadians, right? It's explained to them the three separate fees that are actually increasing the cost of food on the table, and the Liberals just look at them and lie, blatantly lie to you. These imaginary taxes are imaginary. It's in their bloody brains. And of course, the Liberals know as long as they keep repeating the lies, someone will believe them. That's how they work. They're literally just copying fascist propaganda from Goebbels to make sure that Canadians believe everything that they say and that they vote them back in for more abuse and more spending. I mean, if Canadians just can't look around them and realize that what has happened to their economy is directly connected to uncontrollable spending and kleptocracy by the Liberals in power, I don't know what to tell you. Well, let's go to our outgoing scene, our outro. So if you actually started watching the show at the beginning, then you would not have caught this because it was released just before the show. So we're going to play it now. Enjoy our little outro, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming out. Please like, share, subscribe, leave some comments. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians. Did the Prime Minister? Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians. Did the Prime Minister? Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians. Did the Prime Minister... Being honest is a joke to these Liberals, Mr. Speaker. On which the Prime Minister was elected was to quote-unquote negotiate a win with the Americans, to get a deal by July 21st. And here we are, late October, still no deal, still no win, still no elbows, still no jobs, and American tariffs have doubled since the Prime Minister promised he would get rid of them. Yesterday, his latest excuse was that an Ontario government ad prevented him from keeping his promise. So, yes or no, did the Prime Minister or his staff see the ad before it went out?
Mr. Speaker, I'll repeat the answer I just gave to the Leader of the Opposition in French, because he asked the same question in English. Our government, Mr. Speaker, was elected to negotiate an agreement with the United States that's in the interests of Canadian workers and the Canadian industries. Unlike the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to sign whatever agreement the Americans might suggest. We're going to sign an agreement that benefits Canadian workers and the Canadian economy. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we're going to build in Canada, we're going to invest in Canada, and we're going to support Canadian workers and Canadian business.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Prime Minister promised that he'd have a good deal by July 21st. That date has come and gone. And his latest excuse is an ad from the Government of Ontario. He claims that's why he couldn't keep his promise and get a deal. So, yes or no? Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Mr. Speaker, as I said a moment ago, our government is committed to working with all partners in our federation, to work with premiers in every part of the country, to work with union leaders and business leaders, to support the Canadian economy and Canadian workers, and to negotiate with the Americans for a deal that's in the interests of Canada. That's been the government position from the beginning. I'm proud of the work that we've done with all the premiers and businesses and union leaders across the country.
The Honourable Speaker, it's the Prime Minister who has said that the ad prevented him from keeping his promise and getting a deal. He claims he was on the verge of getting that deal. So surely if he saw an ad that would interrupt the deal, he would have said no and hit the brakes. So the question is, yes or no? Did the Prime Minister or anyone on his staff see the ad before it went out? Yes or no?
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to doing the serious work necessary to get a deal with the United States and to build a strong, resilient Canadian economy. That was the commitment we made to Canadians in the election. That was an election that the Leader of the Opposition lost because people didn't believe he would be serious in either supporting Canadian workers, Canadian businesses, or standing up to the Americans for a deal that's in the interest of all Canadians.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians. Did the Prime Minister
The member can continue, and we'll get a few extra seconds to make up for the interruption.
Being honest is a joke to these Liberals, Mr. Speaker.
There can't be too many interruptions because I can't afford that much time, but the member could continue.
Next. Did the Prime Minister or his staff see the ad before it went out? Yes or no?
Mr. Speaker, I can imagine the frustration that the Leader of the Opposition feels when he sees a Prime Minister elected to take this serious economic and sovereignty challenge with all of the seriousness it deserves. That's why Canadians thought the Leader of the Opposition wasn't up to that task. That's why Canadians chose a Prime Minister who takes serious issues seriously, who will defend Canadian workers and Canadian businesses and stand up for the right deal for Canada.
Prime Minister says the reason he doesn't have a deal is because of an ad. Did he or his staff see the ad before it went out? Yes or no?
Again, Mr. Speaker, I can understand the Leader of the Opposition may be frustrated for a whole series of reasons. He's got a caucus meeting coming up this week. He may be very concerned about that as well. Mr. Speaker, what I can tell the Leader of the Opposition and all colleagues in the House is the Prime Minister is committed to doing the difficult, serious work necessary to build the strongest economy in the G7. That starts by supporting Canadian workers, building big in Canada again, and doing everything necessary to get the deal with the Americans that will be in the interest of Canadian workers and Canadian business.
Mr. Speaker, there are 100,000 more Canadian workers out of a job since the Prime Minister promised to protect their jobs. He says that they're going to get the best economy in the G7. It's the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. I met with auto workers in Windsor over the weekend who are terrified that the Prime Minister's failures are going to cost them their jobs. He looked those workers in the eyes and he said he would have a good deal by July 21st, and he broke his promise. Now he's blaming an ad. He has a duty to say whether or not he saw the ad that he says blew up the so-called deal he had. So will he do the honest thing and answer the question, did he see the ad, or is it actually his incompetence?
Mr. Speaker, just because the Leader of the Opposition keeps asserting the same fake premise doesn't make it real. What is real, Mr. Speaker, is the government of Canada can control certain things. We can control investments that we make in partnership with Canadian businesses and Canadian workers to build a strong economy here. We can work with provinces and territories, as we're proud to do, to defend the Canadian economy and to work with the United States to get an agreement that will be in the interests of Canada, something the Leader of the Opposition will never get a chance to do.